She was just the housekeeper. At least that's what everyone thought. No one expected her to speak. She was supposed to blend into the background, invisible among polished floors and crystal chandeliers. But the moment she opened her mouth at that high-stakes business dinner, everything changed. Her words didn't just disrupt a table of millionaires, they shattered the ego of one of the most powerful CEOs in the city. He fired her the next day. He thought he was done with her. But fate had other plans. Because months later, when his company teetered on collapse and his reputation lay in ruins, he walked into a boardroom only to find her, the woman he dismissed, now leading the very people he needed to survive. How did a woman who cleaned tables end up running them? What happened in the shadows after she walked away with her dignity? And why, when he needed saving most, was her name the one everyone whispered? Stay with us, because this isn't just a story about revenge or redemption. It's about how one woman rewrote the rules of power, and how the man who once silenced her would soon beg to be heard. For 3 years, Emily Carter walked the marbled floors of Miller Estate like a shadow, present but never seen. She scrubbed Jonathan Miller's mahogany desk until it gleamed, polished every mirror until it reflected nothing of herself. To the outside world, Jonathan Miller was a visionary CEO, but to Emily, he was a man wrapped in ice, his heart frozen by numbers, deals, and deadlines. She had learned quickly. In his world, silence was safer than opinion, but she never expected that one night, that silence would end, and everything would change. It began with a single sentence. "I need you to come with me tonight." Jonathan didn't look at her when he said it. He was pacing his office like a predator, his tie loose, his eyes sharp with stress. Emily had just finished dusting the top shelf when he dropped the order, like it was nothing more than a change in dinner plans. "To where, sir?" she asked cautiously, unsure if she had misheard. "A business dinner. You'll accompany me. Where's something decent? And for God's sake, don't speak unless spoken to." Emily stood frozen, duster in hand. A housekeeper at a table of investors? It sounded absurd. Or was it a trap? Why her? Why tonight? But Jonathan was already moving on, barking into his phone. Whatever this was, it wasn't a request. It was a command. And something in her gut told her it would be a night she'd never forget. Hours later, Emily found herself in a black dress she hadn't worn in years. It wasn't designer, but it was elegant, clean, and sharp, much like her. As she stepped out of the car, Jonathan barely glanced at her. "Let's go," he muttered, already striding into the upscale Manhattan restaurant. The dining room buzzed with quiet power. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. At the far table sat 4 of the most influential investors in New York. Charles Davenport, the lead investor, had a reputation for breaking CEOs with a single handshake. And tonight, Jonathan needed them more than they needed him. "This is Emily," Jonathan said flatly as they reached the table. "She's with me." The investors nodded politely, but their eyes scanned Emily like she was an anomaly. Too soft for this room, too quiet to matter. She smiled gently, knowing they had already dismissed her. The dinner began. Talk of market expansion, quarterly earnings, and projected margins filled the air. Emily sat in silence, her hands folded, her posture composed. She watched Jonathan carefully. He was trying too hard, laughing at the wrong times, dodging questions. Was he nervous? Then the unexpected happened. Charles Davenport turned to Emily with a curious smirk. "So, Emily," he said, the table going quiet, "tell me, what's it like watching business unfold from the sidelines?" It was meant to belittle, a condescending jab to put her in her place. She could have laughed politely. She could have said nothing, but she didn't. Instead, she met his eyes and said calmly, "It's fascinating. Numbers tell a story, but the people behind them, they're the real plot twist." Silence. Even Jonathan blinked. Charles leaned back, intrigued. "Interesting perspective. Do go on." Emily continued, steady but firm. "Profits matter, but they're not the full picture. If a company grows while the community around it suffers, is that success or is it damage in disguise?" The room shifted. Postures straightened. Forks paused midair. Jonathan clenched his jaw. Charles nodded, impressed. Rarely do we hear such insight at this table. As the conversation continued, more questions came. directed not at Jonathan, but at Emily. Her calm observations, her ability to speak truth with grace, began to steal the spotlight. When the topic turned to community responsibility, Charles asked Jonathan, "So, what initiatives has Miller Enterprises supported this year?" Jonathan hesitated. "We're focused on shareholder value at the moment," he said vaguely. Emily, without missing a beat, offered, "But shareholder value and community value aren't mutually exclusive. Impact lasts longer than dividends." Another pause, another ripple of surprise. Was she stepping over the line? Or was she revealing something they'd all forgotten? Jonathan snapped. "It's easy to speak of leadership when you don't bear its weight," he bit out, glaring at her. Emily didn't flinch. "And sometimes," she said quietly, "those not burdened by power see more clearly than those who are." A chuckle from one of the investors. Another impressed nod from Charles. Jonathan didn't speak for the rest of the dinner. Afterward, outside the restaurant, he didn't wait for her. He simply walked ahead. Back at Miller Estate, he summoned her into his office like a general calling a soldier to discipline. "What the hell was that?" he barked. "I told you to be discreet." "I was," Emily replied. "I answered the questions I was asked." "You were a housekeeper," he hissed, "not a partner. And as of now, you're nothing. You're fired." The words hit like bricks, but Emily stood tall. "Thank you for the opportunity," she said, her voice even. "It taught me everything I needed to know." That night, she packed her bags, but what neither of them knew was that this was only the beginning, and soon everything would turn upside down. Do you think Emily should have stayed silent, or was it right for her to speak up in that moment? Why do you think Jonathan reacted so aggressively? Was it ego, fear, or something else? If you were Charles Davenport, would you have seen potential in Emily, or dismissed her like the others at the table? Also, let us know what country you are watching from, and don't forget to like this video to support us. The morning after her dismissal, Emily Carter awoke in a cramped apartment on the edge of the city, her few belongings packed into 2 duffel bags. She'd spent the night questioning everything. Had she made a mistake by speaking up, or had she finally discovered her voice? But before doubt could sink its claws too deep, her phone rang. "Emily Carter?" The voice was calm, measured, and familiar. "This is Charles Davenport, from last night." She froze. Why was he calling her? What could he possibly want? "I'm assembling a new division at my firm," he said, "focused on community innovation. I was impressed by your perspective. We need someone who sees what others miss. I think that someone might be you." Was this a test or a real opportunity? Could a housekeeper truly become a strategist in one of the most elite investment firms in the country? "I'm in," she said without hesitation. And just like that, the girl who once wiped the dust from someone else's empire began building her own. Within weeks, Emily was no longer cleaning floors. She was stepping onto marble ones as a guest, a consultant, a rising mind. At Davenport Capital, her sharp instincts and people-first strategies quickly drew attention. But behind closed doors, whispers followed her. "She used to be a maid, right? How did she even get this job?" Some called it luck, others scandal. But Emily didn't flinch. She let her results speak louder than the rumors. Meanwhile, Jonathan Miller's world was unraveling. His reputation, once ironclad, was now cracking. The investors were restless, projects stalled, and his leadership questioned. He blamed market volatility. He blamed bad PR. But deep down, a thought gnawed at him. Had he underestimated the wrong person? Then came the email. Subject: Strategic Acquisition Talks. Confidential sender: Charles Davenport, CC, Senior Partners, BCC, Emily Carter. Jonathan read the email twice. Davenport Capital was acquiring a controlling stake in Miller Enterprises. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a move. And at the center of it, Emily, the very woman he'd fired. Could this be coincidence? Or was it something far more personal? The day of the merger meeting arrived. Jonathan entered the glass conference room and stopped cold. At the head of the table, Emily sat in a navy blue blazer, her hair pulled back, posture straight, eyes calm. Around her were senior executives, people who now listened to her. "Mr. Miller," she greeted him evenly, "please take a seat." He did, but not before catching the subtle smirks exchanged between board members. Was this humiliation or a reckoning? Emily began her presentation. Clear, precise, visionary. Her proposals for community reinvestment, ethical growth, and sustainable innovation captivated the room. Slides moved, data spoke, and for the first time in months, the board nodded. Not at Jonathan, but at her. When the room broke into applause, Jonathan couldn't hide his disbelief. How had this woman, his former housekeeper, become the voice everyone now followed? After the meeting, he confronted her in the hallway. "You think you've won," he said, bitterness thick in his voice. "You got your revenge." Emily turned to him slowly. "This was never about revenge," she replied. "It was about being heard, something you never allowed." He looked away, jaw tight. "You think leadership is just talking about kindness and community? Try carrying the weight of real decisions." "And maybe," she said, voice soft but unwavering, "that's why you failed, because you forgot the people behind those decisions." For the first time, he didn't have a retort, just silence. But something about that silence felt different. That night, Jonathan stayed in his office long after the lights went out. He sat alone, staring at reports, numbers, timelines, wondering where it all began to slip through his fingers. Could it be that she had been right? Days passed, then weeks. Until one evening, Emily stepped into Hope Horizon Center, a community hub her team had just launched. It was buzzing with energy, kids laughing in classrooms, volunteers organizing mentorship sessions, and parents learning job skills in the side rooms. And there, in the back, quiet, almost out of place, stood Jonathan Miller. She blinked. Was it really him? He was listening to a young man speak. Jordan Myers, a reformed teen who'd turned his life around through the center's programs. "They gave me a chance here," Jordan was saying. "For the first time, I feel like I matter." Jonathan's eyes glistened. When the boy walked away, he turned and approached Emily. "I need to do more," he said. "I can't just watch from the sidelines anymore." She studied him, unsure. Was this genuine or another performance? "Change doesn't come from showing up once," she said. "It comes from showing up again and again, even when no one claps." Jonathan nodded. "Then I'll show up tomorrow, and the next day." Was this the beginning of redemption or a detour before another fall? What would it take for a man so driven by profit to rebuild with purpose? And more importantly, would she let him? Do you believe Jonathan's transformation is sincere, or is he just trying to win back control? Should Emily give Jonathan a second chance, or keep him at arm's length? Have you ever been underestimated like Emily? What did you do to prove them wrong? Also, let us know what country you're watching from, and don't forget to like this video to support us. The next morning, Jonathan Miller was back. Not at a boardroom, not in a penthouse, but at the Hope Horizon Center, wearing a plain navy sweater and jeans. No assistant, no PR team, no cameras. Just him. He stood awkwardly by the entrance, unsure if he belonged, unsure if anyone even wanted him there. Emily Carter noticed him from across the room but said nothing. Not yet. She wasn't ready to believe the man who once ordered her to stay silent had truly changed. Was this a calculated move or something more human? Hours passed. Jonathan didn't leave. He sat with volunteers, listened to single parents talk about job insecurity, took notes during mentoring sessions with at-risk teens. At one point, someone handed him a mop after a spill, and he didn't hesitate. Emily watched from afar. She wanted to believe in transformation, but how many times had power disguised itself in humility, only to take more? That night, she approached him cautiously. "You came back," she said. "I said I would." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." But what did it take for a man like Jonathan to rebuild trust? Could someone who once cared only about numbers truly become someone who cared about people? Over the next few weeks, the question hung in the air like fog. Jonathan showed up every day. He didn't ask for attention. He didn't try to prove anything. He simply worked, quietly, steadily, listening more than speaking, offering help rather than orders. One evening, after a long meeting about launching a new youth leadership program, Emily found herself alone in the break room, sipping cold coffee. She didn't hear him walk in. "You know," Jonathan said, voice softer than she remembered, "you were right that night, at the restaurant." Emily raised an eyebrow. Which part? All of it, he admitted. I built a company on power, but I never built anything that truly mattered. Not like this place. She studied his face, searching for the man she once feared. But what she saw now was tired, vulnerable, real. You could help build something now, she said, if you're willing to follow before you try to lead again. Jonathan smiled faintly. Then I'll follow your lead. The next few months became a turning point, not just for the center, but for them. Together, they launched 3 new outreach programs, including vocational training for unemployed veterans and a mental health initiative for struggling teens. Jonathan used his influence to bring in funding, but it was Emily's vision that shaped everything. Still, not everyone trusted Jonathan. You think he's really changed? A volunteer asked Emily one day. Or is this just a redemption tour for the press? Emily didn't answer right away. Could she even be sure? Then came the gala, a high-profile event attended by city leaders, philanthropists, and the media. It was meant to highlight the impact of the Hope Horizon Center. As the co-founder, Emily was set to deliver the opening speech. But when the evening began, the host made an unexpected announcement. Tonight, we'd also like to hear from one of our strongest allies, Jonathan Miller. Emily froze. She hadn't planned this. He hadn't told her. Was this the moment he'd take the spotlight again? Jonathan stepped onto the stage, adjusting the microphone. He scanned the room, then his eyes landed on Emily. He gave her a nod, not for permission, but as if to say, this is for you. In my former life, he began, I thought success was about boardrooms, bonuses, and headlines. I believed leadership meant power, and profit was purpose. He paused, voice steady. But then someone reminded me what real leadership looks like. It looks like service, like listening, like admitting when you've been wrong. He looked at Emily again. Hope Horizon isn't just a center, it's a mirror. And what I saw reflected back wasn't flattering, but it was honest. It showed me who I was and who I still have a chance to become. The room went silent. Emily stood at the back, heart pounding. Could it be? Was this his moment of truth? The crowd erupted into applause. But for Jonathan, it wasn't the sound that mattered. It was the look in Emily's eyes. For the first time, she believed him. Later that night, they sat on the rooftop of the center, beneath the glow of the city skyline. You surprised me, she said. I surprised myself. There was a pause. Emily, he began, hesitant. I know we've come a long way. But I'd be lying if I said this has only been professional. You've changed me in ways I never expected. And I care about you, more than I probably should. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. I care about you too, Jonathan, she whispered. But we both know this isn't the kind of story you rush. We take it slow. We do it right. He nodded. One step at a time. As dawn began to rise over the city, they sat in quiet understanding. 2 people who had once been enemies across a dinner table, now partners in something bigger than both of them. But is redemption ever truly complete? Or does it require constant proof? And if love is born from respect, not power, can it survive the shadows of the past? Only time would tell. And you? Do you believe Jonathan's redemption arc is truly complete? Or is there more for him to prove? Should Emily open her heart fully to Jonathan or continue to protect herself from potential heartbreak? Is it ever truly possible to forgive someone who once silenced your voice, if they now fight to amplify it? What do you think of this story so far? If you love it, comment 3 below. If it feels average to you, comment 2. And if you're not quite convinced yet, drop a 1. Also, tell us, what country are you watching from? And don't forget to share this video if it touched your heart.